Hi, welcome to the Black TV Show podcast. I'm your host, Miriam.
Welcome back. This is episode 16. Today I am breaking down the episode from the Cosby Show from season 1, episode 16, called The Jitterbug Break. This episode aired January 31st, 1985. And we start off with a nighttime scene outside the house, so clearly it's the night. And we learn that this is the weekend also. And we see Rudy looking at her Brussels sprouts. And it looks like she just doesn't want to eat them. I don't blame her. I am that girl that hated eating vegetables and fruits. I just wanted my McDonald's fries. So I understand her dilemma. Like, I just don't want to eat it. And so she's just sitting there and staring at it. And Claire was like, as much time that she stares at it, it won't go away. And Cliff leaves the room for a bit to grab some stuff. And Rudy is planning to take it outside to throw it out. And Claire catches her, like, you're not throwing it out, it's throwing it away. And Cliff comes down and asks if Claire is going to go dancing tonight. And Claire was like, yeah. And Cliff's like, are you going to dress like that? And she says the same question back, like, are you going to dress like that? And Cliff's like, oh, it will take me, like, literally, like, 2 seconds to dress up. I just need a shirt and a tie and I'm good. It's going to be you that's going to need all the time in the world to get ready. And he mentions that Ralph and Marie will be coming tonight, so she needs to be ready. And Claire was like, yeah, I will be ready. Don't worry. She'll stay ready, you know? And Cliff says, like, he can't wait to dance, and he starts doing a little dance there in the kitchen. And Claire's just, like, laughing. She's like, he can't dance. And she mentions to him, like, you cannot dance. You dance like a crazy person. She feels like, you know, when she's dancing with him, she's like in a professional wrestling match. I wouldn't want to dance with someone that's like, it feels like that. So, like, I want to dance with someone that's good. That's the one thing I like. I don't like is if I dance with someone that can't dance. Not saying that I'm a professional dancer, because I am not. But I love to dance, and I just want someone that is at around my same level that can dance. Because if someone is like offbeat and stuff, it actually makes me offbeat when I dance, and it pisses me off. I can't dance with that person. And Rudy starts laughing, and Cliff points out her Brussels sprouts, and she shakes her no. Like, she does not want to eat that Brussels sprout. Claire was like, I'm gonna go get a dress. And she tells Cliff, like, you do not let Rudy leave the table until she finishes her plates. And Rudy, like, does not want to eat it. And Cliff says, fine, you just sit there. And she's like, how long? And he starts talking about a story. Of course, this is not a true story. Where, you know, the girl just sat there and waited. And all her friends start to grow up. And, you know, go to college. And she just sat in her same clothes that she wore when she was 5 years old and stared at it. And, you know, life is just going by. Rudy was like, huh? That's not gonna happen to me. Like, of course this is not a true story, but he's trying to get her to eat it, and of course she's not gonna eat it. We cut to Theo's room, and he's playing basketball, but it's like not basketball, it's like those like softballs that you could put in a basket, and the basket is in his room. I remember back in the day, when I go to a lot of people's houses, they had a basket in their room. I feel like that's just not common now. I don't know if that's just me, but maybe it's like when you're younger, when you're in high school, it's more common at that time. And Denise opens the door right when he does a shot, and he like falls backwards, and she's like, "Ooh, I'm sorry." And she asks, like, can she borrow $15? And like, he's like, why? Like, why would you want to borrow from me? And she was like, well, I'm gonna get tickets for the concert for the Walking Lemons. Wanted to check if that's the actual band, not a real band. Of course, you know, the show uses a lot of fake names to talk about other bands. I wouldn't know I don't know if they're referring to a band at that time. Of course, I feel like I'm not into the music that Denise listens to, so I wouldn't know what band they're trying to refer to. But that is not a realistic name or a realistic band in real life. And Denise plans to sleep out on the sidewalk to get the tickets, because the first concert got sold out, but they now have another concert, and you know, you gotta wait in line in order to get the tickets, or else if you don't, you're not gonna get good seats, or you're not gonna get any tickets. It can be sold out. And it's crazy if you look at it nowadays. We never will we don't do that anymore. It's like maybe you stay up late and you're by your computer and you're waiting for, the time to, usually I think it's like 10 p.m. or sorry, 10 a.m. that when Ticketmaster like lets you buy tickets, and you just have to book your ticket with your Visa or credit card online, and you buy the ticket. Like, it's no more of waiting outside for tickets. I remember a time that it was like that when I was a kid, where people would wait outside for concerts. I'm trying to remember of a concert people would have done that for. I remember there was a time where people would wait in line. I wonder if we had to do that for the Hillary Duff concert. I don't know if that's that time they had Ticketmaster online. I'm not sure. Because I end up going to a Hillary Duff concert when I want to say when I was 7 or 8 years old. This is the time when she's like done Lizzie McGuire and she's like on Cheaper by the Dozen and all that. He was like, there is no way that Cliff will let her stay outside or sleep outside. And Denise was like, if he says no, I'm just going to bring up the time that he slept outside to get the Yankee tickets. And Theo was like, no, it was all at the Connie Mack Stadium in Philadelphia that he went to get the World Series tickets. And Denise was like, can I get the money? Like, she asked for the money, and he's like, well, if he says yes, I'll give you $500. And Denise was like, you don't got $500. And he's like, do I look worried? And so clearly he knows that, that Cliff is going to say no. And Denise goes downstairs to the living room to see Cliff, and Cliff is like picking up music to play, I guess, to get him in the mood of dancing. And Denise is like, oh, I have something to ask you, but I need Mom to be there. And Cliff is like, oh, is it because you think I want to say no? And she's like, And so Cliff tells her, calm down. And all of a sudden, the phone rings, and it's Mrs. Davis. I feel like I've heard this name like 5 times in this season. We have yet to meet who Mrs. Davis is. I don't think we'll ever meet who she is. But she is the babysitter, clearly. And of course she's sick and she can't babysit. And so he's like, oh, it's fine, I'll find someone else. And he hangs up the phone and he looks at Denise, and Denise was like, don't look at me. And he's like, okay, fine, I won't look at you. And so he looks around and he's like, well, I need a babysitter tonight, and it'll be you. And Denise was like, I have plans, I can't babysit. And Denise suggests Theo to babysit. And at first Cliff was like, what? Theo, he can't do it. He won't do it. Or he won't do a good job. And Denise was like, he will do a good job. Don't worry. And Cliff was like, well, Cliff asked Denise, will Denise take responsibility for Theo if things fail, basically? And she was like, yeah, for sure. He will do a good job. Cliff was like, okay. What do I got to lose? A house, a couple of children. That made me laugh. I was just like, what? And so he goes to Theo's room. When he gets in, he sees stockings, like the legging. I don't know what you call it, but the stockings that you wear under like a dress for a female, and it's in Theo's room. So Cliff is like, what is going on? And Theo was like, I don't know what it is, but until I find out what it is, I'm just going to keep it before I throw it out. And Cliff was like, okay, whatever. And so Cliff asked him, like, can he babysit? And Theo was like, no, I can't do that. That's a woman's job. I can't do it, And Cliff was like, no, you can do it. You can do a good job. And Theo was like, well, that's not fair. When there's snow, I have to shovel, and you don't make Denise do it. And Cliff was like, you're right. That's a good point. Next snowstorm, Denise will be shoveling the walkway. And which is a true thing. Like, I feel like when jobs like that, you assume that guys should do that, and you never get a woman to do it. And I like how they're in this episode, they're slightly talking about, gender roles. How you just assume the girl in the family is going to babysit the whole family, and the guy will do all like the shoveling and taking out the garbage and all that stuff. And nowadays that shouldn't be the case. It's like whoever is capable of doing the job can do the job. So I like how Cliff is like, yeah, fine, we'll get Denise to shovel the driveway the next time. And Theo then asks how much does he get paid? And Cliff sits him down and grabs a bat. Where does Theo play baseball? Like, this is like the third time we see a bat in the season. This is only season 1, and we have not seen him talk about baseball. We've only seen him talk about basketball. So I don't know what's going on. And so then Cliff talks to him about a story about back in the day, generations ago, you know, parents didn't talk to children, blah, blah, blah. Things that, it's just another story, basically. So we cut to Denise on the phone, and she's talking to her friends and says, like, she still hasn't gotten permission from her parents to sleep out to line up for the tickets. Theo and Cliff come down to the main floor, to the living room. And Cliff says the first responsibility that you have is to make sure that Rudy eats her Brussels sprout. And then Theo's like, and then what? And Cliff was like, by then we'll be back from dancing. And then Cliff was like, oh, stop. To Denise, like, you were going to ask me something. And she was like, oh, I need to wait for Mom to come in. And Cliff was like, Mom is getting ready. Like, just ask me now. So she asked if she could sleep away from home. And he was like, okay. So you're going to sleep at a friend's house? And she was like, no. So you're going to sleep at a stranger's house? And she was like, no. And he was like, so where exactly are you planning to sleep tonight? She was like, on 32nd Street. And he's like, where on 32nd Street? So basically he's asking, like, who are you going to be with? Like, where? And she's like, no, I'm going to sleep right on 2nd 30th Street itself. And he's like, are you going to volunteer to be a pothole? I'm like, what? Like, human beings can't just cover a pothole. Like, that's not going to happen. And all of a sudden, she tells him, you know, she's planning to get tickets for the concert. And he's like, no, you're not going. You're not going to stay in line. And Denise brings up the time that he was at the I think she said Connie Francis Stadium, and he's like, no, it's Connie Mack Stadium. And Cliff, like, for the World Series tickets, and Cliff mentions that he didn't even want to go. He wanted to listen to the game on the radio, but his dad made him go get the tickets, and, like, it was raining, and the rain was so big, it, like, made lines on his face. Of course, this is an exaggerated story, as usual. And so Denise was like, you're not being fair. And, you know, Cliff was like, well, you're not going. And 32nd Street closes up my mind. Because she's like, I thought you were going to be open-minded. And he was like, no, 32nd Street closed his mind. And we end Act 1 from there. And we move on to the next act. And Cliff is bringing Vanessa down and telling her that Theo's going to babysit. She gets worried. She's like, what if the house catches on fire? And so Cliff's like, well, then, you know, he's going to call the firefighters. And what happens if the robbers come in the house? And Cliff is like, well, Theo will fight them. And then, and if he dies, then Vanessa will be the next in line to be in charge. And Vanessa's just, like, freaked out. And Cliff is like, you know, your brother is capable of taking on these issues. Don't worry. And all of a sudden you see Theo come in and he says, I have a problem. And Vanessa laughs, knowing, like, this is not going to work. This is not a good idea. And the issue is that, you know, he's unable to get her to eat the Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprout. I'll be honest, I've never actually had Brussels sprouts. When I first saw the first scene, I thought it was broccoli that she was eating, and it wasn't. So, I don't know what the difference are between the two vegetables. And so, Cliff is like, why don't you eat them and eat one? And Theo was like, I hate Brussels sprouts. Theo to outsmart her and use a story about the Brussels sprouts are the 3 little pigs and she's the big bad wolf. And Theo's like, that's not gonna work. And Cliff was like, it worked on you when you were a kid. And he's like, I'm gonna try that. So then we see Clara walking Denise into the room, and she starts talking to her like as if, like, this is a court case, like, you know, that Denise presented all her facts and everything, and that, you know, she made a really good argument. And Denise was like, but you said no. And Claire was like, yeah, because you're not allowed. You're not going to just sleep on 32nd Street. Denise asks Claire, like, did Grandpa do crazy things with Dad? She's like, yeah, lots of crazy things. And Denise is like, well, why don't we do crazy things? And Claire was like, okay, what do you want to do? She's like, let's sleep on 32nd Street. And Claire was like, okay, I'll bring your dad, Ralph, and Marie. And she said another name. I can't remember the name, but it must be the band that would be playing the music for their dance night. And of course, Claire was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And we are cutting to the living room, and we see Cliff is dancing by himself to his own music. And Denise comes and watches and was like, she's just watching him. And he stops the music, and Denise was like, when my friends come over, you need to not do that. And Cliff was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is dance, And he mentions like how her friends, they do breakdancing, and it's just like crazy things that like it's not even considered dance. And he mentions Nipsey Russell, who is a comedian, and I guess in his comedy set he mentioned that what they do for dance is as if is like having a fit. And what's crazy, like when I heard that, I was like, the first thing automatically I heard was in my mind was Nipsey Hussle, the rapper. And I'm like, oh wait, no, never mind, there's a comedian named Nipsey Russell, which I believe Nipsey Hussle took the Nipsey part from Nipsey Russell to put in his name, because of course that is not his real name. His real name is Irmias Ascodo. I would know because he is half Eritrean and I'm also Eritrean, and so that's what the first thing I thought about in this scene, because I guess I'm not familiar with Nipsey Russell's comedy sets or all the shows he's been on, because of course he's in the generation of the 80s, and of course that's not my generation because I wasn't even part of that generation. And so the phone rings and Denise quickly grabs the phone, and of course Cliff is not happy, and the person on the phone is for Cliff, and Cliff was like, say sorry to me, and Denise was like, sorry to the person on the phone. He's like, no, not to the person on the phone. So he takes the phone, and I think the person on the phone is a nurse, and she's asking for a chart. So he's like, I'll go to my office right now and read off the chart for you. So he goes and does that, and Denise's friends come to her house, and she brings them in, and they said that they weren't even allowed to go to wait in line for the Walking Lemons. So they're gonna get a friend to buy all the tickets, so they're giving all their money to a friend and doing that. I feel like that's such a better idea. Like, why do you want everyone to be standing in line? But I guess also at the same time, that is a cool experience, so I don't know. And so they were like, let's just stay at like here and just dance all night, or not dance all night, just have a dance party because they wanted to show some moves to Denise. Her friends wanted to show their moves to Denise. And she asked, like, is this enough room? And they're like, not really. We need to move the couch and everything. And she's like, I'm going to get my brother to help and move the furniture. So she goes to Theo and asks Theo, like, to help move the furniture. And he was asking, like, why? Because, we want to dance. And Rudy's like, oh, I want to go watch. And Denise was like, you got to eat the Brussels sprout before you can come to the living room and watch. And she ate that so quick. I was like, whoa. I was like, clearly Denise is a pro as a babysitter. So we go to the living room, and it's all cleared out, and everyone's starting to dance. You see Theo doing a full-on break dance on the ground. It's like, what he did, I've actually done that when I was like maybe like 7 or 8. Once I got into being a teenager, it was too hard on my body, especially my arms. But it's like a rotation on the ground, basically with your hands. Vanessa's two friends, they do like a whole coordinated dance. Rudy does like the moonwalk, and clearly at this time, this is when like Michael Jackson did the moonwalk, and became a cool dance move. And Cliff walks in on this. And one of Denise's friends is like on the ground with his legs over his arms and moving like a frog, basically. And Cliff is like, what is going on? Like, he's like, what is this craziness happening? And so then he kind of joins in, and he hears the doorbell, and of course it's his friends Ralph and Marie. And he opens the door, but then closes it. And then he's like, oh man, it's actually my friends. So he opens the door, and it's Ralph and Marie, the friends the couple that he's planning to go out dancing with. And they come, and they were like, they don't need to go out, so let's party here, you know? And Marie was asking Claire, like, what's going on? And Claire was like, I don't know, I just got here. And so Cliff turns off the music. So the music that they were playing were the music of Denise's generation. And Cliff mentions, like, I want you guys to see old folks dancing. And so he told Ralph and Marie, I want you to show them what we do. And so Cliff puts on his music for his generation to show the young folks their kind of dancing and music, you know? And so they do, and they do a really nice dance. Like, I would say it's very ballroom contemporary dance. It was very coordinated, I would say that. And then at one point, one of Denise's friends shows Marie a dance, like a dance move, and then Marie shows him a dance move. It's very hard to explain this on a podcast because this scene is very visual. So I'm sorry if it's not clear. And so I'm hoping you're actually watching the episode with me so you understand what I'm talking about in terms of this dance. They start dancing, and so then everyone starts dancing, and Claire joins. And Cliff and Claire are dancing like crazy. They're like going side to side, and all of a sudden Claire jumps on Cliff. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so scared for Claire. She's gonna fall on the ground. And of course she doesn't, but Cliff is like tilting back and forth. And finally she stands up, and then they're dancing again. And he twists her all the way that she ends up falling on the couch. And Cliff goes and runs and tries to jump on her. And so she moves out of the way, and while he jumps onto the couch. And then and then we see Cliff dancing with Denise, and everyone's like, "Aww." It's like, she's like, "No, what are you guys doing?" You know? And they do like a nice slow dance, and we end the episode right there. So I want to mention that there was a few guest stars on this episode. The one star that did not get a credit on this episode, which I'm like upset because he is a big star now, is Blair Underwood. He was playing Denise's boyfriend, and he did not get a credit on this episode. In season 2, we will see him again, playing a different character, which, as you probably know at this point, I hate when they bring the same actor to play two different characters. That's just not my thing. But I guess in this way, he didn't even get a credit, so whatever. And then we see this Judith Jameson and Donald McKaylee as Marie and Ralph. And they are two professional dancers and choreographers. And it's been said that for this episode, they actually gave a dance lesson to the Huxtable children. That's, I guess, the luxury of having professional dancers come on to your show. I believe Judith has worked at the Alvin Haley dance dance company. I believe that's what the name is. So they're two professional dancers, and you can see how they were dancing perfect. Like, they were just perfect with their dance moves. And I would say the lesson of this episode is that all genre of music is good music. Doesn't matter what generation the music is, it's all good. We all can dance to all kinds of music from different eras of different generations. And the question that I have is, what genre of music is your favorite? For me, I would say it would be like, I don't have like the one favorite, but I like hip hop, R&B, sometimes rap. Oh, I like 2000s rap. I'm not into the current times rap. It's not my, maybe because I'm older now, I'm not into the rap that we have now, but I'm more into like the 2000 rap, with 50 Cent, maybe also Drake, our Canadian ambassador. You know, but that those are the genres I like. I also like jazz from the, back in the 80s, the 70s, the 90s. 90s hip hop I love with Tupac and Biggie. So let me know about your favorites using the hashtag JitterbugBreak at Twitter at Black TV Shows Pod. And the next episode is Season 1, Episode 17, Theo and the Joint. See you on the next one.